Hi, everyone. This is Miranda Ward with the Valuable Voices podcast. I'm really excited today. I have Ruth Hovsepian. I think I said it right. I'm so
Perfectly.
excited to hear your story. Thank you so much for being on.
My pleasure. And thank you for the platform to talk about my story.
Yes, I'm super excited. I know I was like, how did we get connected? But I know I'm in a bunch of Facebook groups. I think she saw another podcast, and I just love, like I was saying, I get inspired by other people's stories. So I just know that your story is valuable, your voice is valuable. So let's just dive right in. Um,
Thank you.
you got your book there, so we'll get to that. But let's kind of start with wherever you want to, kind of growing up. What kind of where you were before and then what got you to where you are today. So yeah, kind of dive in and give us a little insight.
Okay, so I grew up in a very what I call traditional and typical Christian family. My extended family, my immediate family were involved in all kinds of church related activities, from church planting to leadership. And my dad became a pastor actually when I was in my teens. So I grew up in that, a very loving, very traditional type of a home. I got, but I was always a little bit of a rebellion to the point where I think I was just being such a brat one day that my parents threw out the fact that, oh, you know what, even the gypsies couldn't handle you. So we picked you off out of mercy from the back lane. And now, thankfully, I look like my aunt and I look like my dad. So I know that it was all in a joke. But seriously, I was always considered the black sheep of the family. I was considered a little bit different than everybody else, but I always felt loved. But there was always something there, a little rebellious streak in me. And, I wanted to always prove myself. I think I had a lot of body self-image issues as a child. And I always wanted to one up people. If I was told I couldn't do something, I had to prove that I could do it. And, fast forward, I met my husband at a lay leaders Bible school. It was a 1 year program. We met, we got married. I had three children. When my youngest was 5 months old, there were all kinds of issues in the marriage prior to it. But at that point, we separated and eventually got divorced. And during that time, those issues that I had, those feeling of inferiority complex, I'm not good enough, I look different, always been overweight. So I had these little issues in me. And I never had that rebellious those teen years. I was a really good girl, but I did have my horrible 30s. And after my divorce, I filled that emptiness and that void in my life by going out. And I distinctly remember, like it was yesterday, the first time that I walked into a bar alone. I mean, I hadn't been into very many bars to start off with,
Mm-hmm.
maybe two or three in the past. But I remember walking into a bar on my own. My kids were with their dad visiting him. And I walked in, sat at the bar, ordered a drink, and that was the decline for the next few years for me. And when I say few, I'm being very kind. It was for the next almost 10 to 15 years. And alcohol became my go to numb the feeling, to get rid of the inhibitions, because what I was looking for was affirmation. I was looking for validation. And unfortunately, I looked for it in a lot of wrong places. I went into, sexual encounters. I was having multiple sexual partners. It was just my way of doing it. I had no long-term relationships because I just did not want to be abandoned. Because in my mind, I had been abandoned. I had been a good girl. I had done everything the way I was supposed to do things, and I had been abandoned. And I took it out in this way. I manifested it in this way. And so, I really was addicted to sex and I was addicted to pornography. And it was a very, very dark times. And, I remember so clearly one night I came home, stumbled into, up the stairs, a couple of stairs, and trying to be inconspicuous. So people weren't looking at me. It was 5 in the morning. I didn't remember how I had gotten home.
Mm.
I couldn't remember what I had done. I could imagine what I had done. I just remembered how I had started my day. And that was it. There was this blackout, and it wasn't the first time, and it wasn't going to be my last time. But I remember so clearly that night I came in, I went to bed, and I was crying and just weeping and said, Lord, what am I doing? I'm living this amazing, fantastical double life that nobody knows about. Sundays, I'm sitting in the pew with my children, and
Yeah.
every other hour, between church services, I'm out there just being someone I'm ashamed to even talk about. So I was really hiding this other person. I didn't want to acknowledge, I didn't even want to know who that person was. I didn't want to meet that person. It was really, really a really dark time, and but every time I went through these sessions, I knew what I was doing was wrong, and I made all the promises that I could make. Lord, thank you for bringing me home safely. I could have, died. I could have this, I could have that, and I won't do it again. I love my children, I love my family, but I didn't love myself.
Yeah.
So the next night I was back out there, doing what I was doing. And this went on, as I said, for about a good 10 to 15 years, until one night I had blacked out to the point where I woke up in a strange place, did not know where I was, who I was with. And I remember waking up, and I remember walking out of the hotel room. I don't remember anything in between. And then the next thing I remember, I was in bed at home.
Wow.
And that night, there's a verse in the Bible. It's Psalm 55:17, and it says, evening, morning, noon, I cry out in the darkness, and he hears my voice.
Hmm.
And that's who I was that day. I was crying out to the Lord, and he heard me. And I wish I could say that overnight things changed. It didn't. But
Sure.
prayer became my go-to. Whereas before it had been sex and pornography, I started to lean into prayer. And prayer is such a comfort to us. Prayer is so powerful. Power is all cleansing. Prayer is a direct line of communication with God. And I found my solace in the Lord. That's where I got my comfort from. And it was a daily struggle. Like any addict, it's a daily journey. I say I'm a recovering addict, and I don't think I will ever be healed from it. I hate using that term, but an addict is always an addict. We take it a day at a time, and we allow the Lord to help us through those.
Yeah.
So I hid this was a secret for many years after that. And it was about during the COVID that I had been asked to speak just at the, in 2000, what was it? It's been so many years, I don't even remember anymore. But in 2001, I believe it was, I was scheduled to speak at 3 different women's events. And I had decided, or they had requested me to speak about prayer and how my life had changed. And that's what I was going to do. And in my little wisdom, I thought, okay, I'll give something to the women to take home with them and refer back to. So, well, everything fell apart in 2001, and none of this was going to happen. So I
Yeah.
got this bright idea, and I went to my sister, who is an author, a best-selling author, and I said to her, I want to put this little booklet together. Could you do some of your illustrations and some of your, magic, and
Uh,
let's I'd love to put this together so that the next time I'm asked to speak,
Yeah.
I can have something. Well, she looked at it, and God speaks through so many different people. She said to me, Ruth, there's more to this than just a handout. I think that this can be a book.
Oh, wow.
So she eventually sent it to her agent. Her agent was the one that really narrowed down and defined what that book eventually became, which is now 100 Days of Prayer, a journey into deeper intimacy with God. And she said, Ruth, it's all great that you've got all of these short daily readings and reflections, but I think people want to hear more about you. So
Yeah.
it became a bit more of sort of a memoir, prayer guide, and journal. And it's 100 days of guided. And I put in there things that really helped me, the
Wow.
different types of prayer, my becoming very intentional about praying for myself, praying for my children, for friends, for missionaries, for missions, different organizations.
Mm.
But that's what that book became. It became sort of very cathartic for me. But then, of course, I had to tell my family and my close friends that this is what was going to be in the book. And that
Wow.
was the first time, a couple of years ago, where my dirty secret was put out there. But
Yeah.
the Lord has been great, and He's led me to where I am today.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Like, I love hearing you told that so well, right? You just took like however many years and told that so beautifully. And I'm just nodding because I can relate. And I know so many people can relate.
Mm,
It may not be the exact story, but, being a divorced woman, a single mom,
yeah.
feeling addicted to multiple things throughout my life,
Yep.
whether it's food, shopping, men, I mean, you name it, right?
Yeah.
Gosh,
We feel, sorry, we
yeah,
fill the void
yes,
in different ways. We all do it in different ways. And as you said, it may be exercising, it may
yeah,
be our children, it may be good things, right? It may be church activities, but we're still trying to fill this void
yeah,
that really cannot be filled by anything but God.
yeah,
And God will fill that void that we have. And for me, it was through prayer. We all will take a little bit of a different journey.
yeah,
But for me, was that defining moment was the more I focused in on praying and became more intentional to pray,
yeah,
my relationship with the Lord got stronger.
yeah,
And it was just a daily thing. And I praise God for what He has done. And without Him, I would not be here.
yeah.
It's a miracle. Yeah.
And it ultimately stems down to, yeah, not feeling worthy, not feeling good
Mm,
enough. And my relationship with the Lord has grown too, because it's like once you hear his voice, tell him who you are, he
yes.
created you rather than listening to all these other voices out there, which is why I love this platform because your valuable voice telling the world your story. And that's why it's amazing for you to have been so vulnerable to share your story in your
Mm,
book and with your family, because otherwise I think the enemy really wants you to kind of keep that shame
yeah.
and keep that story down there in dark. And when I've come out and shared some things with friends or whatever, people relate. And that's how
Yeah.
you get deeper in relationship and connections with people as well. So
Yeah. And one thing, Miranda, that I found, that there are a lot of loud voices in our lives, from social media to friends, family, but the loudest voice is our own voice.
yes,
And we are our worst critic, our worst enemy is
and
ourselves.
yep,
And I remember there were days, years, I could not look at myself in the mirror
mm,
because I did not recognize the person who looked back at me. I look at pictures and videos from those years, and knowing where I was, I'm like, oh, I was a hollowed person. There was a look on my face. I was smiling, I
yeah,
was laughing, but there was a look on my face that I had, you know, detached myself
yeah,
from from the family, from friends. It was, I really, I'm so for, people getting back to
Yeah.
the word of God and
Yeah.
helping
And that's
themselves.
not, I'm sure you can agree, that's not living life. That's not living
Oh,
up to your potential, whatever your purpose is, your destiny,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
That's
Oh,
putting
those
blinders.
are wasted years.
Yeah, yeah. But look, now you're out there telling your story, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know about wasted. I feel like there's always growing and healing.
Yes, it's true. If we take those bad things and we use them for good today, yes, sure, I would have preferred not to have
Yeah.
gone through that. But having done so, it took me a while to figure this out and, get out of that pity party in a way and say, okay, Lord, I did it.
Yep.
I've got the experience. I've got that. What do you want me to do with it?
Yes.
And that has been very difficult. I'm a very goal-oriented person, and at the moment, I no longer see this goalpost in front of me. I've
Ah,
I've really said to the Lord, take it. And everything I've been doing for the last year or two, about 2 years, has really been on faith and saying, Lord, my book was that, the second book that I wrote was really, going off of what I felt the Lord was telling me, and doing what I'm doing today has been, a walk of faith.
yeah. So who would you say your book is for? I mean, if I would guess it's for somebody that's feeling not worthy, addicted to something, and just like looking for help.
Yes, exactly. Anyone who's trying to fill up a void, an emptiness, or trying to understand why their prayer, they feel that their prayers are not working. Our prayers always work
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
pray, excuse me, but we feel that sometimes we're just not connecting, we're not hearing it. So that book is for someone who's really looking to develop a stronger prayer life and to use that to strengthen their relationship with God. Yes, there is the other side also, that anyone who is struggling with some sort of addiction or some sort of, and as I said, addiction is not the typical addictions we think of. I think we're all addicted to something. It
Yeah.
could be Netflix, it could be
Yeah.
coffee,
Yeah.
but if it becomes our all, it's an addiction. If we can't do without it, it's an all. So I think this book is good for anyone who is looking for, strengthening their prayer life.
Awesome. I love that. Where can we find you on social media, website, all of that
Yeah,
good
on
stuff?
social media, it's Ruth Hovsepian. On every platform. I'm on Instagram, YouTube. I have a podcast. It's called Out of the Darkness with Ruth Hovsepian. And I speak with, as you do, with others
Yay.
to hear their testimony,
Oh, I love it.
their story of redemption. Yeah, and there's all kinds of free resources on my website. So,
Beautiful.
feel free to check that out.
Wow. Well, I love it. I can, even think of people I would love to give this as a gift to. I just, it's a decision, right? It's a
Mm,
decision to want more for yourself, to want
yes.
freedom from those chains and from those lies. Um, so yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to get my hands on it and read it. So you guys check her out, and I'll put all the links that you shared with me in here too. So, and I want to listen to your podcast. So I am so grateful you were on today. Thank you for sharing. I know
My
people
pleasure.
can relate, and yeah, I appreciate you giving the time. So
Thank you and have a blessed day.
thank you so much. God bless everybody. Take a listen and check out her webpage and podcast and book. I'm so excited. Have a great day. God bless.